When I look at the political landscape and the economic landscape of the world, I really have a difficult time accepting that this is what life should be.
They had so many concerns about education, technology, agriculture, Barbuda, health, the environment. You will be so surprised as to what they are engaged in.
If we can do that, we can walk on that path, we will find a lot of solutions, we'll find a lot of adventures, we'll find a lot of answers.
We need to foster that entrepreneurial spirit.
No judgment, no negativity, all good vibes and conversations.
All this and more right here on Grassroots Radio.
Hello, podcast fans. Welcome to another episode of Grassroots Radio. I'm Unique Bird, your host, and my guest today is Shanna Challenger, a young local ecologist currently employed as the coordinator of the Redonda Restoration Programme. So yes, she is in part responsible for the remarkable rebound in the ecosystem of that island, and she has been recognized by Caribbean Beat as one of the top 25 Caribbean achievers under 25. I gotta warn you guys, there are some audio issues on this interview. And by way of apology, we've included some extra goodies in this episode. So be sure to look down in the episode description and check out all the great links we've collected for you. Thank you so much for your patience and your continued support. I know that you're gonna get so much value out of everything Shanna has to say. And with that, here is Shanna Challenger.
Alrighty, hi everyone. My name is Shanna Challenger. I'm 24 years old and I am an ecologist. And so, no, not an economist dealing with numbers, but actually dealing with plants, animals, ecosystems, etc. And I have the very best job in the world.
Okay, and what is that?
My job for the past 3 years has been revitalizing an island, basically starting an island from scratch. I have the privilege to work on Antigua and Barbuda's forgotten sister island, Redonda, and take it from nothing to something. So when the island, of course, was discovered by, quote unquote, discovered by Christopher Columbus, it was, like I said, green and teeming with life, lots of things going on it. And then when we went back in 2012, 2013, the island was completely deforested. It looked like the surface of the moon. You know, no plants, no trees, just rocks. And when you look at it from afar, you're just like, oh, how could that possibly sustain any life? But once you flew over, got in the helicopter and actually got down there, you saw how much life was actually over there. So even through those hardships, we had 3 species of critically endangered lizards that are found nowhere else in the entire world, only on Redonda. We have thousands of seabirds choosing Redonda because they don't want to be anywhere where the humans are, because we mess things up a lot. So instead of doing that, instead of being there, they choose Redonda because it's completely uninhabited, of course. The waters around it have a lot of productivity around it, so lots of food for them to eat, and they can, breed without fear of anything that was going to be bothering them, except for the 2 major things that were left over there by the humans. Like I say, always us causing problems, which would be rats and goats. And so because the humans were living over on Redonda during the mining period, like I said, there's a lot of birds choosing to pick Redonda as their spot. And with birds, of course, they eat a lot, so they poop a lot. And back before World War I, bird poop was gold. I wish it still was gold because I'd be rich now for the amount of times they pooped on me. But it was gold. It was gold back then. And so there was an American mining company that made an agreement with the British, because of course we were still under British rule then. And there were about 200 people, mostly men, who were living on Redonda permanently, and they would basically gather up all the bird poop and ship it to England so they could use it for ammunition and for fertilizers up in England. So yes, little fun fact. And so of course, when those people would have gone over there, they would have had to bring, their clothes, bring all of their stuff with them, and with them, of course, came rats. And rats are the best at, colonizing an area and making it theirs. They're really good at it because they can stow away into little small crevices, and they can multiply really, really quickly. And of course, eat everything, including each other, which I have witnessed and is not not very good. But once they got onto Redonda, remember, of course, I say it's just seabirds and lizards really over there. And so they were the apex predators. Nothing was really bothering them. And so they were able to quickly multiply. And just for a little context, Redonda is really small. It's not even 1 square mile. Antigua is 108.
Yes.
Or is it Antigua and Barbuda? That's 108. Geography people listening, please don't kill me. That was
Antigua alone is 108.
That was a long time ago.
Barbuda is something else.
Yeah, something else. Anyway, so Antigua is 108. Redonda is not even 1 square mile. It's 0.1. It's really, really tiny. And so on something so small, we had over 7,000 rats on the island. And
but then you said how many men were living there at one point?
So about
small.
200 men, yeah. And so I actually love camping over there. Yeah, it is very intense because it's like all cliffs, no trees, like I said, so it's all sun all the time. Of course, no Wi-Fi, no electricity. It is really fun to camp over there though, because of course there's no light pollution, so you can see all the constellations at night. Yes. When you wake up in the morning, you have the beautiful sunrise, and of course you have the birds chirping. It's very much like being in a storybook when you're over there. But yeah, the way that I came in was to deal with these invasive species. So like I said, the rats kind of stowed away with them, and then they actually brought the goats, of course, as a food source. And so they were eating and killing the goats while they were over there. But then, of course, if it's time to leave, for you to go back to your family, who are run goat pon cliff before they have to get back, right? So the goats just remained and remained and remained. But of course, they're goats, as opposed to, another fun fact, as opposed to sheep and cattle that, they will just crop. So think of them as just like a lawnmower, just kind of mowing the lawn, as opposed to goats, which are ripping out everything by the root. So there's not any chance for anything to survive. And so that's why the island became so deforested so quickly and for such a long time, because of course you have the goats that are eating the plants. So they're eating all the leafy green stuff. The rats are foraging on the seeds, right? The rats are also attacking the seabird chicks and eating the lizards. And like I said, eating each other when it got to because it's so hot over there, especially during the dry season, there's hardly any food. If they saw a rat that was dead, they would actually just eat it. And so when we were staying over there the first time, we basically put out traps to kind of get an idea of how many were on the island at the time. And by the time we would get back to the beginning of the traps, we would just find like body parts of the rats, because the others would have taken. Very gruesome, but very interesting though.
Yeah. It's an interesting case study in like ecological collapse, because that's basically what happened.
Completely. And so it's amazing that we weren't too, we were too late with some species. So Redonda used to have its own iguana. We had our own iguana over there. We also had our own little owl.
Owls?
Owls.
I didn't know there were Caribbean owls.
There were. But because, of course, those species, of course, the iguana would be more dependent on the greenery. So once that was gone, it would have died out really quickly. And then the owl, it's a burrowing owl, and they are ground nesters. So, of course, on the ground with a big rat. And the rats, by the way, it's not like they were coming out at night either. They come out high daytime. They don't matter. They don't care what time of day it was. They were out.
The 24-hour rats.
Right? They weren't afraid of you. I would expect that I'm there and they run. They would see me, they would watch me, and they would continue. They were the top dogs over there. They ran things over there, literally, right? And so because it was such an unfortunate circumstance that had happened over there where, Redonda didn't ask for that. It's those invasive species that would have come and, messed up the whole ecosystem. And so that is where we came in with the Redonda Restoration Programme to see if we could really bring an island back to, if we could turn back the hands of time, basically, and get it back to at least what it could have been. And so that's exactly what we did. First off, we started off by removing the goats. So I actually don't eat goat water anymore since 2016 because each goat, it was, and even the goats, a lot of people were just like, why didn't you guys just leave the goats over there? They're just minding their business, whatever. But every time we would go over, and these goats, I must say, they're Spanish breeds. So we did some genetic testing on them. They're Spanish breeds, so they're family to some Cape Verde off the coast of Africa, and so they're a really good breed, and they're drought resistant. However, a lot of times, every time we'd go over, we would see dead bodies, the carcasses, because there was hardly any food left, and so we decided it would be more inhumane for us to leave them over there to starve to death than to bring them over here where we can study them, we can check their breeding, we can actually feed them so that they survive, which was another interesting thing when we actually brought them over there and compared them to goats here. It has to do with a little ecological thing called you have something that's all together, and then once they're separated, they kind of evolve. And so with the goats, I remember one of our goats, so a couple of goats were staying at the Ark with Dr. Fiona. She had some older, I think were they older? No, they were younger than our goats, and they were so much bigger. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And then I realized that, of course, on Redonda, because there was hardly any food availability, natural selection would actually prefer for the smaller goats to survive, because, of course, they would have less requirements. And so they'd be able to live longer and be able to reproduce. And so all of the big sizes, of course, would have died out because they would need more food and they would be able to survive. And so goats from Redonda was actually stunted because of the fact there was hardly any food. So compared to, say, if you look at a 6-month-old, or let's just say a 1-year-old Antiguan breed is the size of a 3 or 4-year-old Redonda breed. It's actually very interesting.
Yeah, they're like mini goats.
That they would change that way. Yeah, they're very cute. And so we brought them all over, and like each one of them, I held them in the helicopter. The babies, I would feed them, all of that. And so I've gotten too attached to goats to actually eat, their cousins in some stew at night. So I've stopped eating goat water completely. And then for the rats, it involved us camping over there for 2 months, and it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was definitely a lot. I remember my first night there, being in my tent and hearing, you're in your tent trying to sleep and you can hear the rats outside. You can hear them climbing on top of your tent.
Oh my gosh.
you just hear them.
So how many, what was the size of the rat population on Redonda when you guys first went over?
So when we first went over, it was about 6,000 or 7,000 of them. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Within 0.1 square mile.
Yeah, they were all over.
That's horrifying. That's like a nightmare.
It was a lot. It was a lot. And I had to keep reminding myself, I don't think I got much sleep that night. I just have to keep reminding myself, Shani, you're bigger than them. They can't hurt you. But it was kind of eerie, just having being in your tent and literally hearing them outside your tent. And we had rat traps because, of course, we had food because we're camping, and you have the rat traps. You can hear the rat traps going off. You can just hear them. You can just hear them going off. So you know they're right outside your tent.
This is like being in a movie or something.
It really was. But then you get accustomed to it, and so what we did a combination because it was so many rats. The island is really, really mountainous. We actually so the people who were staying over there with me, all of them were volunteers, so none of them got paid. I don't know how many Antiguans I would have been able to get to stay over there with no internet, no electricity, not getting paid, hard work all day for 2 months. But I was one of them. But
dedication.
And that's what it took. Because every morning, so we'd wake up at about 5 and get our stuff together for the day. And everybody would have, we basically divided the island into different lines. And so everybody would have a line where you go from the south of the island all the way to the north and back up. And so we would take all our bait. So you'd have, the 1.5 liter water bottles. We'd cut off the tops and the bottoms of them, so it creates a little tunnel, and then we would wire 4 pieces of bait, and we put that down every 30 meters or so, and then we'd check in. We'd come back the next day and we'd see how much of it was gone, what ate it, so we can tell. You can tell based on the teeth marks that they leave on the bait. You can tell what would have eaten, if it was a crab, if it was a lizard trying to scratch at it, if it was a rat indeed. And the good thing about this bait, it only targets mammals. And of course, the goats were already gone at that point, and the goats wouldn't have been looking at, and they would go. Goats wouldn't have been trying to eat nothing like that anyway, right? And we do. The crabs love it. Fun fact, I really don't like crabs. I don't like land crabs at all. They're so scary, especially at the night on Redonda, because the big purple ones I'm talking, oh my God. But they love to eat it. And of course, they're invertebrates, of course, it doesn't do anything to them. But it bothers me when I realize that they were crabs. I'm like, oh, so many of them.
And they're just eating your bait.
They're just eating the bait.
Just a snack for them.
Yeah, so if we're realizing, okay, there's a lot of crabs, because also droppings, that's another thing we look at. So any droppings we see, crabs, their droppings basically look like commas. And so if we realize, hey, okay, crab, this one is too many crabs are coming to this one, we'll move it and like make a note that we moved it or whatever, and see if the uptake goes on. Then another thing, of course, with the rats, it turns your poop blue. So we can look out for the rat sausage shaped droppings. And yeah, we just did that for 2 months. So first with the toxic bait. And then the good thing about Redonda, well, good and bad thing, is that majority of them died on the surface. So we were able to dissect them and make sure that it was actually the rat bait that was killing them. And so within the 2 months, so we put on the rat bait, and then we also put out like non-toxic bait. So if you have a rat that they really like the smell of peanut butter, so we'd make like peanut butter wax, we'd make chocolate wax. It was very, very nice scents actually. And just to see if we missed a rat or anything. So you'd have us on the ground doing that. Then we had abseilers, so we had mountain climbers on the cliffs slingshotting bait. We had people hanging out of the helicopter throwing bait. The good thing about this bait, of course, was that the rats it takes 3 days. And so they will continue eating without realizing that they're poisoning themselves. And it kills them by internal bleeding.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they just slowly realize that, oh, I'm dying, I'm dead. And so, yeah, we were able to get rid of them that way. And of course, we continue to go by the islands to make sure that they are still rat-free. And so since the last rat we saw was like February 2018. I think that was the last rat we saw. February 2018. And so, yeah, it's been a full year and a bit since we've seen any rats. And we do, like I said, biosecurity checks to make sure that they're not there anymore. And so, yeah, very expensive to get that kind of thing done, by the way. Yeah, we're lucky to say that with Redonda, I wish I could show a clip, but you can't show clips on podcasts, but go on our Facebook page, but you can see the before and after of Redonda. And so now there's like weight height grass. We've had birds coming back that we've not had before. We have land birds coming back. We've had bats coming back for the first time as well. And so the lizards as well. We've had guys, herpetologists, guys who study lizards from Harvard University come, and the lizards have actually doubled and tripled. So the ground lizards have doubled and the tree lizard have tripled in population size. And the seabirds are also having their highest breeding season yet. And so, yeah, with just a little help from humans, nature has been able to heal itself. So,
excellent.
Yeah, we're pretty happy about that.
And congratulations to you and your team and everyone involved in that effort. It was quite a feat.
Yeah, it really was.
It's amazing that it was successful. I'm curious though, what was the genesis of this program? Like why, like who decided that this needed to be done now? And kind of how did you guys put this team together to go over and start doing that? And also, where did the funding come from?
So I should have probably started off with who I work for. So I work for the Environmental Awareness Group, which is the oldest nonprofit environmental organization here in Antigua. And the EAG has for years been putting in work since 1995. They've been working on the offshore islands, specifically the ones in the northeastern marine managed area, the NEMA, or Great Bird Island, Green Island, those islands on the east side. Basically, they did most of their work there. And they would have had, of course, the success of bringing the Antigua racer, or only endemic snake, or only snake period, bringing our snake back from the brink of extinction. And so with the success of the Offshore Islands Conservation Program, one of our members, Mr. Joseph Prosper, he had always been talking about Redonda. He said, you know, guys, we need to be doing something about Redonda. We need to be doing something about Redonda. And we had a specialist from Fauna and Flora International, which is a UK-based NGO. And so they went on the helicopter with him, and then she realized, yeah, we need to do something about Redonda, because if we don't do it now, it's going to be too late. Because like I said, the island was literally crumbling into the sea. And so with some help from Fauna and Flora International, we were able to get some funds to be able to do so through the Darwin Initiative. So basically, British citizens, they donate, they pay, I think one of their taxes is like environmental something or other. But yeah, with that money, the government then gives grants to do different types of environmental work. So that was one of the major sponsors, the Darwin Initiative. And then we were able to get support from other organizations such as U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Taurus Foundation, Global Wildlife Conservation, Disney, Birds Caribbean. It's a whole consortium of organizations. So I don't want to list all, because I might forget somebody, but it was, we were able to, and I will say as well that the Redonda Restoration Programme, it was, even though it was headed by the EAG, there was also support from the government and FFI, like I would have mentioned, because of how important and how big a project it was. We realized that it couldn't just be one organization doing everything, that it had to be, you know, a group of people coming to get it done.
A true collaborative effort. I'll put on my devil's advocate hat for a second.
Yeah.
Because I can see some people who maybe are not into the environment or don't pay attention to things like this, who would see this as sort of a frivolous pursuit. Like, why would you spend all this time and all this money and all these brilliant people's, you know, mental resources on, quote unquote, fixing an island that no one lives on, that's just a rock that would crumble into the sea? Why is it important to do this kind of thing at all?
Yeah. Okay, so for those kind of people, I try to let them think about, you know, the bigger picture. And so Redonda, it is ours, you know? So if you're losing Redonda, you're losing a part of Antigua and a part of Barbuda, you're losing a part of yourself, right? And so that's the first thing, the sense of ownership for it, because everybody should feel something towards Redonda. The next thing is that it is so historically important. Like I would have said, the mining, here in Antigua, of course, we have Nelson's Dockyard, which is really representative of, you know, the naval, the shipping era. Of course, we also have like Betty's Hope and stuff, which would be of the slavery era. But we don't have anything that's representative of that industrial era, when, you know, industries were booming. And Redonda, which I didn't mention, but on Redonda, there's also still some buildings from back then. Buildings, there's ovens, there's fireplace, that kind of thing, and so water catchment. So it's actually very historically and archaeologically important. And so if you lose Redonda, then you lose that piece of history. And then, of course, for me, the biggest thing would be the ecological loss. Because if we were to leave the rats and goats over there, they would have continued to basically override that entire ecosystem. And then already, like I said, we've lost the owl. That's not coming back ever. Extinction means everybody knows what happened with the dodo. Imagine that happening here in Antigua. You know, you lose a lot of ecological value when you lose your endemic species. And so Redonda alone has 3 endemic species of lizards. We're also now finding out that we might be having endemic species of plants over there as well, you know? And so here you have a resource where your Antigua and Barbudan students can come and research this and find out more about it, you know? If you had not spent the time to improve the ecosystem, then you would lose it completely, you know? And so Redonda, it has a lot of value. It's a local and regional, international treasure, because everybody knows how important it is and how we have been able to, you know, save it. And so, yes, it might seem like it's a waste, but you have to think about what you stood to lose if you had not done anything about it.
I think that's a really great perspective, particularly the historical aspect of Redonda, which I think a lot of people don't know anything about. I am 32, and I only learned about the mining that happened on Redonda like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's not something that is really that prevalent in, I guess, what we learn in school or anything of that nature. So even to hear that there's still buildings over there is like fascinating.
Yeah. And speaking of education, I didn't mention this, but that's also something that I've been really working on ever since starting my job. And so being in the schools a lot, in fact, I'm actually working with the Ministry of Education to get Redonda included in the primary school curricula.
That's so good.
So that at least, because I'm so tired of when we do these school presentations, you ask them to do a food chain and they're telling you, oh, an eagle, or, a giraffe, a lion, and I'm just like, you don't have to use these international examples. People don't even know here that we have falcons, we have hawks here. People forget that we have raptors, and even the fact that, you can use a Redonda ground lizard or something instead. And so trying to show that Antigua, you don't have to go international, you don't have to go abroad. We have so much to be proud of here, ecologically, right here in Antigua.
That's a great message. Yeah. And I also wanted to ask you about generally when we're speaking about ecology and the Caribbean region, and you mentioned a lot about different endemic species and these seabirds who a lot of them are migratory. And I wanted to ask about how the Caribbean ecosystem fits into the larger global ecosystem, and how that might be changing with the trends that we're seeing around the world of sea temperatures rising, sea levels themselves rising, and just kind of what are you seeing on the ground?
Right. So the Caribbean, of course, is a biodiversity hotspot. So think about the Galapagos, the Pacific, Hawaii, etc. We are biodiversity hotspots. So we have islands that are not only, islands which are not only full of species that are endemic, meaning that they're found only in that region. So think of like a pelican, the Caribbean brown pelican. Yes, we have it in other countries, but it's a regional endemic. And then you have, of course, national endemic. So down to the islands, specific species that you're not going to find in any other country, anywhere else in the world. Another reason why we're a hotspot, other than the species that we have, is that we are under a lot of pressure. And there are a lot of things that can happen to, make it bad for these species. So whether it be deforestation, poaching, unsustainable development, etc., these species can be erased very quickly. And so with the Caribbean, I would say, I think we have maybe like 35, don't quote me on this, but like 35% of the species. We're leading a lot with reptiles. We have quite a lot of reptiles in the region. I think followed by birds in terms of endemism. But these species, once they go, like I said, they're gone. That's it. Not good at all if that happens. And so here in the Caribbean, we have, we always see these people from international universities coming to study because what we have here is so special and it deserves, all of this research. So for an example, a lot of people don't know it, but when the frigate bird sanctuary, right? And then the third thing you think about is pink sand. What a lot of people don't know is that Barbuda actually is where Antigua and Barbuda has our only endemic bird. So the Barbuda warbler is a bird that is found nowhere else at all in the entire world other than Barbuda. And so imagine how we, the ecologists, were when after the hurricane, for the first 2 weeks, we didn't see any at all.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really, really tough. And we were very, very worried.
But did they
it was really, really tough. Yeah, so they did come back. After 2.5 weeks, they came back. We saw the first one, and so that was for me my first hand experience of the oh my gosh, the bird has been wiped out kind of thing, and I realized how bad that would be, with that endemism, like I said, there's a lot of interest in it. And so from the time Hurricane Irma had happened, we had a bunch of birders reaching out to us like, what can we do for the Barbuda warbler? They actually ended up chartering a plane just to go and look for the bird. They chartered a plane
That's so
just
awesome.
to come, and so there's so much interest in it, and we are so lucky to be in the Caribbean because we have all of these species, and because of all the drama that's happening with all the other big countries, so the US, Canada, China, etc. When these species, I also say the Caribbean is also a very important stopover site for migratory species. So like when we have humpbacks passing through, peregrine falcons, even the laughing gulls, etc. The Caribbean is the place where they're like, okay, Jack, I can take a little breather here. I can come to Antigua. I can fill up my belly. I can, relax here a little bit before I have to go back and deal with all the drama that's happening up in the States, right?
Yeah, we're a vacation spot for the birds as well.
We are a refuge, and we can see that. And especially for us, because we do these bird surveys every year, these species are continually choosing to come back to Antigua because they know it's somewhere they can get food and they can be safe before they have to go back and go through the winter. With the Caribbean, it's just showing that we have a lot to be proud of, and that we are a diaspora, which we always love to say, but other than just for humans, also for species as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and also a tourist destination, not just for humans, but for species.
Yes,
as well.
yes, for species as
and
well.
That would come with a responsibility to be good stewards over our environment. And
yes.
You mentioned sustainable development or unsustainable development, and
yes.
especially on Antigua itself, we have a lot of coastline development. And in particular, our Northeast Marine Management Area is now under threat by additional development.
Yeah.
Is this something that the EAG is looking at, or I'm just wondering, what can be done to protect areas like this that are currently under very real, serious threats?
Well, that area is in a protected area.
Yes.
Yes. So one would think that the legislation should be enough to protect it, because, of course, in a protected area, you're not supposed to have a number of illegal activities, such as deforestation of mangroves, dredging, which is about to happen.
Concrete plant.
It is very devastating. That is what I would say, because, and that's why with my work, put me with the animals all day. Put me with the lizards, put me with the birds, put me with the snakes. When it comes to the human aspect, always complications. And I will always prefer species over humans every day. So for us, remember that we have had 25 years, 25 years that we've been putting in work into this area to even make it attractive for development in the first place. Because I guarantee to you, because this is, Redonda was the 16th one, so we've restored over 15 offshore islands in the Nama area, right? Wow. So 15 of them don't have any rats on them, don't have any mongooses on them, don't have any goats on them, and are teeming with life. When you pass by, the water is so clear. Remember, everything is in the ecosystem is connected. So when we get rid of the invasive species on the island, there are more seabirds there. When more seabirds are there, of course, they're pooping and all of that, and so that's enriching the coral reefs that are down there. When the coral reefs are looking, well, I should say the mangroves and the coral reefs. So when the coral reefs are looking good, of course, their water is more clear, more blue, more life is there in the waters. And so I don't want to say the whole reason, but we have played a major role in making those offshore islands attractive as to what they are right now today. And so when you have something that's literally happening right in front of your face that is basically slashing down all of the work that you would have put in, it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. And so we have met with the developer to express our concerns. We've sent a number of letters to the government agencies about it as well. But alas, we are still in the same situation.
And
it seems as if our hands are tied. And the sad thing about conservation is that a lot of times these things require money to be able to, like, you know, do a lawsuit or something, or if you want to buy an island to make sure it's not developed. And of course, because we're a nonprofit, we don't have that kind of money to do so. So it's difficult, and it's something that really affects us. We have something called floating classrooms, actually, where we take students in primary school, probably like around the grade 6 age usually, and we take them into the mangroves. We show them upside down jellyfish, sea cucumbers, starfish, etc., baby lobsters, and then we take them over to Great Bird and we show them the snake and we show them the seabirds, so they can see how all the ecosystems are working together. And, like, you know, right where we have to drive by, you have that kind of thing happening.
What's the reaction from the students seeing the contrast of those two things? Like, here I am trying to show you the love.
They're shocked. And so, and I do think that our generation and the one that's coming up after us has realized that, you know, we're in deep stuff right now. And if we don't do what we can, then it's going to be too late. And so they're realizing that, hey, this is wrong. I think everybody is realizing that it is wrong. I think for me as well, it's like, we've done this already. There are a number of books that we have in our possession that, you know, they talk about the whole Jolly Harbor situation as case studies about what not to do. This is what Antigua did. Do not do this. Because, of course, with Jolly Harbor, it's basically the same thing that happened, where you had a bunch of ponds backfilled, you had a bunch of mangroves removed, and now look, little rainfall, West Palm Beach flood out, Bowlands flood out, this place flood out, this place flood out. Was the extra $10 that you make worth your house being flooded out all the time?
Nope, certainly
all the species, all the habitats for the species that were lost, all the crabs that the boys used to be able to catch when they were younger, was the loss of that worth it? It really wasn't, you know. And so here we are doing the exact same thing. And my thing with nature, which upsets me a bit, is that nature likes to take its time to show what's going to happen. I'm just like, no, show them what's going to happen right now. But I know it won't be until, you know, in the next 30 years or so, probably not even that long. No. But I don't think it's going to be that long, because, of course, in that area, that's the eastern side, and that's the side that the hurricanes come the hardest. So what's going to happen to the communities of Parham, Setons, Glanvilles, when there's no mangroves to protect them from the storms? What's going to happen? You know?
We know what's going to happen.
Well, that's the thing. We know exactly what's going to happen. We know exactly what's going to happen.
And yet we keep repeating the same mistake.
Same. And that's what gets me frustrated. It's not the first time. It's not the second time. Like, why are we continuing down this road, you know?
Yeah. What do you think could change people's mind? I mean, is there something in terms of public support that individual members of the public could do to, I don't know if it's put pressure on the government, I don't know what role the government has to play in this particular situation at this point, since, you know, what's happening in NEMA is
it's
kind of a private sale between private companies.
It is.
Even though it's an area that should not have been up for sale.
I mean, my thing in the first place, you know, well, my thing is that we should always be trying to get a balance, make benefit over ecological benefit. You know, why can't it serve two masters? Yes. And so I think the first thing would be trying to make sure that they understand that, you know, this is a protected area, and the value of having these ecosystems here, you know, it's just as much, if not more, than the economic value of you know, developing them there. I do think if enough persons of the public were supposed to say, hey, we're really against it, then it would at least, you know, we've started the conversation, but it would at least take the conversation a bit further, like, hey, okay, now our constituents are upset about this. And so we don't want to see just, you know, all of our work reverted, and especially on the offshore islands where they, like I said, remember I was talking about some of the birds that are coming all the way from, you know, some of them come from all the way from Alaska and coming down to Antigua to overwinter. And so we are now deteriorating the habitat that they're going to be in, you know? And so, yeah, and sustainable development is it's a very present issue here in Antigua. Environmental impact assessments are supposed to be done for every development, but sometimes they're not done, and sometimes recommendations are, you know, ignored. And so, you know, we try, we do our best.
Your work is like greatly appreciated, you know?
Yes.
I know it can sometimes seem like a thankless job because you've been spending so much time on this and now it's being undone, but it is important work. And I personally, and I know a lot of people out there, are happy that it's being done and that someone is taking that responsibility to be a steward of our environment. And you mentioned something about the interconnectivity of the ecosystem and everything in it. And a lot of times as humans, we forget that we are part of the environment. You know, we're not separate from it. We can't survive without it. So it can no longer be an option for us, especially in an island, to be like, oh, well, sustainable development is something that we can consider. Like, it's not really an option anymore. It's a necessity.
It really isn't. Especially with mangroves. I mean, when people think about mangroves, unfortunately, the first thing that comes to their mind is like, you know, stinky, smelly, sandfly, and mosquito, right?
Right.
But mangroves are so much more. When you have all of the pollutants from farms and stuff running off, pesticides, etc. The mangroves, with their roots, they're holding all of that from going into the sea. Right? They're the reason why the waters, or in addition to the coral reefs, they're the reason why the water is so clear when you get into it. Where you can hashtag your I live where you vacation. Right? Also the mangroves, of course, for some of the birds as well, very important habitat for them. And then mangroves, of course, are the nurseries of the sea. And so all of your baby fish and baby lobster, jellyfish, crabs, etc., that's where they all grow up. Right? So if you get rid of the mangroves, you have less juveniles, because of course they're not gonna have any mangroves to hide in, and so they're gonna be available to predators, and so more likely, you know, to get gobbled up, which means less fish available for you and your family to eat. Right?
Yep.
And so it's my thing with environment in general. I try to let people think that we have to start thinking always in the long term, because thinking in the short term, look at where it's gotten us, you know? And so it's just thinking about the little things that you can do. So like you said, about humans being a part of the environment, just little things that you can do. And so, especially in our mangroves, another thing that we experience a lot is illegal dumping.
Really?
Illegal dumping, a lot of it.
Oh my God, dumping of just garbage, or like construction waste, and like what kind of dumping?
In the Fishes Creek Swamp, which is behind the stadium, there are huge mangroves behind it. So to get there, of course, there are pieces of people's houses. There's like stairs, there's car parts, car doors,
oh my God,
tires, there's fridges, stoves, fans. Somebody had a party, so there's like piles and piles of Caribbean beer cans. There is so mattresses, dolls, just all discarded.
This is so upsetting to hear.
Discarded, right?
Yeah.
And when you have all of this garbage, there's something called, which I hope people know about right now, like microplastics.
Yes.
Because, you know, plastic doesn't ever really break down. Well, break down completely. It just gets into smaller and smaller pieces. Right? And so when you have all of this garbage in a mangrove, and you have these plastics that are breaking down, and remember the mangroves are where all the baby fish are, right? Yeah. And you have these little fish that are looking for food and are accidentally, because they're just opening their mouths and expecting to eat something, and are swallowing these plastics and swallowing more of them and more of them. And then they get to you as a human who is now eating the plastic. You're eating the fish filled with the same plastic that you put in the mangrove in the first place. You know, it can come and bite you right back. you know? And so we, again, thinking human, you dumping, because what it seems to be is that the trucks, instead of visiting the dump, I think when you go to the dump, I guess you have to pay a fee or something. So instead, they just go and dump it in the mangrove because nobody's behind there, nobody's studying, nobody cares, quote unquote. And they just leave their stuff there. We also, dead bodies of dogs, dead goats, etc. But the good thing is that we use this as an educational tool. And so we take students out there to go and see the birds, right? And then also see how humans are and how disgusting we can be, and how you have to think. You have to think. And I mean, that Fisher's Creek swamp, it is actually globally recognized as an important bird and biodiversity area.
And
we're dumping stuff in there. It is really, really sad what we have in here in Antigua with this mentality. And I mean, on Twitter, I'm known for always talking about the fact that if I see anybody littering, if I see anybody eating stuff during the close season, and I see people drinking from a plastic straw, from a plastic bottle, I'm ready to cuss them. I'm always ready to report them, call the police on them, because the only way, unfortunately, the same way with when the plastic bag ban happened and the styrofoam ban happened, you have to basically shame people, right? And it's only when things become taboo that people will, feel like, oh, they shouldn't really be doing that, you know? And so when you see somebody littering, or even if they're accidentally, because I mean, how many of us have, had like a napkin or something in our lap and then gets out the car? It's like, oh Lord, that's a little something, man, it won't be doing that too much, And so it's just those little things, changing to a reusable bottle. Especially, I try to push that as much as possible because here in Antigua, we're still very reliant on those Oasis plastic bottles.
Oh, yes.
You know who you are. But yeah, not using plastic straws, of course, because we've all seen that turtle video where when it had to have the straw removed from its nose. Everybody's seen it, so you know what they can do. And then with cutlery as well, I unfortunately sometimes fall prey to this because I forget to walk with my cutlery sometimes. But if you don't need, so like some restaurants, I know like Gio's for sure, they don't give you cutlery anymore with your food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they don't give you forks and knives to limit their plastic consumption. And I know it's a big switch and you can't do everything overnight, but if each of us does a little bit, we can all do a lot, And so that is what I try to, because it might seem like, so especially with the close season, I have to always explain over and over and over and over again about why they're important. And I know people love their lobster. I know people love their chub or their parrotfish. I know people love them. But we have to think in the future, because what's going to happen when your grandchildren have never been able to eat conch because our generation yam off all? What's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Well, we're going to starve, right? We'll be like the rats on Redonda. I think that's a really good metaphor, because that's what happens when you decide that you're not part of your environment and you can do whatever you want with it. You have to eat each other.
I think right now in 2019, a lot of things are happening, and I hope that people are paying attention. The glaciers are melting completely. The Amazon, well, we all know what's happening in the Amazon.
It's on fire.
And it's still burning. For those who don't know, it's basically being pushed by the cattle ranchers, and it's because of the demand. I think about like 20% of all meat in the world comes from Brazil. From all beef, I should say.
Yes.
And so they're making land for their cattle to be able to graze. And so if we were less dependent on their beef and all of that, they wouldn't have less demand for it and they wouldn't have to burn so much. Again, so little by little, limiting your beef consumption, more plant-based, etc. would, a lot of people are like, oh, well, what can we do about the Amazon? And it might seem like a very not realistic thing that can help, but
eat less
supply
beef.
and demand. Another thing, of course, is global warming. And everybody knows how hot it is outside. The good thing about global warming is everybody gets it by now. It is hot as hell outside. And there's actually some research saying that in about 10 years, this will be the coolest that it is. Mm-hmm. It won't be any cooler than how hot it is right now. You know, that will be our new cool, right? I haven't done any economics courses, but I know that, you know, people only continue to do something if people want it. And so with our consumption, you know, with the close seasons, if I see somebody eating conch, right? And it's the close season, like it is right now, from July 1st to August 31st. If I see somebody eating conch and it's the close season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am going to also want conch, right?
Yeah.
So now you have two people who are demanding conch during this close season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that then turns into 5 more people and 10 more people, and then
right, exponentially.
You have these all these people who are now depleting this. Another thing that happens is right before close season, a lot of fishermen will go and pile up in their fridge, right? And so the thing is, it's not like if we can, because a lot of people, especially because lobster close season happens within sailing week, and a lot of them are like, you know, oh, how y'all gonna have it during sailing week? This is when everybody want lobster. We cannot speak to the lobster and them and tell them, hey girl, hey sis, I need you to breed like next week, not this week, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Or hey, can you release your eggs at this time? And we can't.
This isn't something that we're making up, right? It's a natural cycle.
No,
so
exactly. And the close seasons are basically done according to their spawning. So it's when they're going to be reproducing that we close it, so that there's as much adults as possible to produce, to participate in the breeding. And so it's crazy the kind of reactions we'll get. And but we try. And the only thing you can really do is educate people. And I mean, they're like, oh, so like I said, for the people who would have had it in their fridge, the person who now has seen you at the conch and wants conch, they're not going to get it from their fridge because they don't have none from their fridge, right? And so if people see you with it, again, they're going to want more. And so what they're trying to do with the close season, another thing, is to change the mentality, you know, so that people know that, hey, I am respecting the close season and I need to make sure that, you know, I'm doing as much as possible and is respecting it in this time. So try not to eat when you're not supposed to eat, people.
Seriously, and I mean, it really shouldn't be that hard. Yeah. But I don't know, there's something about people just kind of like breaking rules or getting away with stuff. Like,
yeah,
I'm cool because I have this when other people don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really curious, Shanna, as to how you personally developed this love for the environment and what led you into studying ecology and becoming an ecologist.
Right. So ever since I was pretty young, I have always been very much into animals. I remember vividly like being in Shaw's in the line with my mom, and she's like trying to buy me princess books or something, and I'm picking up a book on snakes. You know? So I was always very much into animals. And then, I mean, I guess around high school kind of time, I was like, okay, I like the sciences, yes. But of course, they kind of made it seem like, okay, you like the sciences, so okay, you have to become a doctor. And I didn't like it then, and I still don't like that narrative now, because it's very one-minded, very, very close-minded, I should say. Yeah. And it doesn't have any respect for any of the other sciences that you can go into. But I was like, okay, I guess. And I went to state college. I did the sciences again. And then when I was going to Barbuda, I picked biology and chemistry. I got to UE, and the good thing, which I always tell people, go to UE, you have to. It's supporting our regional product, and you're not too far from home. But when I went to UE, the good thing about the course is that in first year, they teach you a little bit of everything. So every part of biology. So I was doing biochemistry, I was doing ecology, I was doing evolution, I was doing like cell biology. And so because it was all split up like that, I was able to decide which parts of it I really, really loved. And, you know, I realized with my bio, you know, we're doing so many cool field trips. Like I remember, like compared to all my friends that were in like SOSI and we're like, you know, in class all day, I'd be like, oh, we're just going snorkeling this weekend, or well, this week. So, but this is during school hours, you know. So for like an entire semester, every Monday and Friday, we would do our snorkels, and it would. And if not that, then sometimes we'd be at the beach. Sometimes we'd be in gullies, literally gully creeping, looking at the plants, looking at the canopy cover of them. And so I got so immersed with the fieldwork aspect of it, because to be honest, I don't really love being in the office all the time. I find it kind of gets dreary. And being able to be out in the outdoors and basically do something different. And that's the good thing with ecology, is that, you know, it's the study of the entire ecosystem and how things are working together. And so although I work very closely with, you know, species, I will say with ecologists, it's kind of it's kind of a break about what you like. I'm more on the animal side, definitely, than plants. I wish I could be more into plants. I just don't like the fact that they don't be moving. I don't like the fact that they don't be moving.
You're prejudiced against plants.
I am, unfortunately. I need to get into them a bit more, but I'm definitely more about the animal side. And so I love that I was able to learn about, you know, they teach about beachside vegetation, about rainforest vegetation, the differences between them and what makes each of them so special. And it was just I just soaked it up like a sponge. It was so interesting to me, and I decided, so halfway through my degree, I decided to change it to ecology. And I remember I just went in the office and did it. And afterwards, I told my mom. And I mean, I had a Board of Education scholarship. I lost it for a little bit because apparently you can't just jump up and change your degree. So anybody on that train, just make sure you send them a letter first or something. And I remember when I got into third year, now, remember I had talked about the prejudice about how you have to become a doctor if you want sciences.
Yes, of course.
Now I'm in the sciences, and the people who are doing physics and chemistry were looking down on the ecology people, saying, oh, y'all can't find no job. What are you going to do in Antigua? What are you going to do there? And I was like, you know what? I know Antigua has a lot of wildlife, and I know that somebody needs to be helping them out. And so I always knew that I was going to find something. And so while I was in third year, I started looking for jobs, and the Redonda option was on the EHE website. And I had my interview via Skype because I was still in Barbuda. And surprisingly, they actually wanted me, which was good.
Not so surprisingly.
Quote unquote, not so surprisingly. But I was a bit. One good thing was that they didn't say that, you know, you had to have a master's or you had to have all this work experience. And I do think because I was so fresh out of university that I was able to bring, you know, another level to it to, you know, make it, because I was so I've been active on social media about it, doing surveys, going around in the schools, being able to camp out, being able to talk on the radio and stuff, you know. So I was just so excited, and I'm always excited about Redonda. And so I actually want to go and get my master's in conservation biology, and what I really want to focus on is the seabirds. I'm pretty interested, because another thing which I should say, I didn't mention that, oh my goodness. So with Redonda, with all that work, remember you talked about what makes it safe. So right now I presented the Redonda ecosystem reserve. So not only the island, but also protecting the seas around it as a protected area. And so, we're just awaiting the cabinet decision now and working on the management plan. And so as that management plan is happening, I'm also trying to identify research priorities, because it's my hope that, you know, state college students and UE5 Islands, UE5 Island students should be able to take Redonda as, you know, a resource that they can use. And so we're basically, because there's so much to study, the invertebrates, the marine aspect of it. So another thing I do is I dive. So we scuba dive around Redonda and look at the different species that are there, because we think that, after a couple of years, because of course the island is stabilized and no longer falling into the sea, that we're going to see some big changes underwater. So looking forward to that. And so there's so much that can be researched, and I definitely think I'm going to do seabirds. I hope so. If not seabirds, then it will be kind of like the ecosystem on a whole, how each aspect is, contributing to that. And with that knowledge, of course, it would benefit Antigua again and the region. It's all about contributing, and making, and my thing is always try to make a little difference in the world. And so for me, it's through the environment and trying to salvage whatever we have, because my thing is, and I mean, a lot of people, what his name is, Prince Harry and Meghan got in a lot of backlash because of what they were saying about having one child because of the carbon emissions or whatever. But the thing is, the next generation is the ones who are going to really have to deal with this climate change thing. If we think it's so bad now, imagine in the next 20, 30 years how bad it's going to be. And so I feel like I am here as an ecologist at this specific time to try and make sure, like, yes, even though in the big countries they're doing all of that stuff, here in Antigua and Barbuda, we're doing a lot. We are doing our part, and once you're doing your part, I think that's all that you can really do. And so ecology, it's a really good field, and because one thing is that you're dealing with species, like I say, much better than dealing with humans, and you can really you can see the rewards of your work. You can see it's very, you don't have to wait. Like I find sometimes if you're doing a lot of office work, it's like, okay, I sent this email, I did this, I did that, but what has been the change? What has been the impact of it? But with Redonda, especially for me, I can see all the lizards coming back. I can see that they're not as afraid to come out as they were before. I can see that there's more birds that are surviving to adulthood. I can see there's more plants coming up, It's very obvious what the work that I have done has done for them. So yeah, very rewarding field. And there's a lot of prospects here in Antigua for not just ecologists, but for science in general. Don't feel as if just because, it's Antigua and a small island that you can't do anything here, because you definitely can.
If we want to follow you online and keep up to breast with all the work that you're doing, where would be the best place for people to find you?
Right. So I am most active on Instagram and Twitter. My handles for both of those are Bayesian Persuasion, because I was actually born in Barbuda. Okay. Fun fact again. So BAJAN Persuasion. And so I do mostly, most of my environmental stuff would be on Twitter though. Of course, Instagram is for looks, but mostly in my stories is where I have the environmental stuff. And so you can see me, tweeting about the close seasons, how important they are, or, just asking somebody. So again, asking somebody where they got some conch. I got me and my coworker kind of found out a place on Twitter again this week. And just, educating people, because what people say, a lot of people, they don't genuinely know. And I feel good that, people can come and ask me any kind of question about the environment or anything that they feel is a big issue. So I'll get people to say, hey, Shanna, people are doing this at this place. Are they supposed to be doing that? And then although sometimes it's not my field, because of where I'm positioned, where I work with the government and I work with the NGO, I probably know exactly who I should tell. I can pass on that information so that you as a citizen know that you've done something right.
Right.
So yes.
That's wonderful. And thank you again so much for taking the time to talk to me today, and also for the work that you're doing, not just on the ground restoring Redonda, but also in policing the seasons, and then educating people. Yeah, and raising the general awareness of what we're doing and the impact that we're having on our surroundings. It's really important.
And make sure if you learned anything today, make sure you share it and just bring it up in conversation, because again, educating others, we just need to keep educating others so that when they do, and that's why I say with the shaming. So my coworker, he messaged me and said somebody at what is the close season done. I keep going on for closed seasons, but it's the thing that gets the most drama with me online. And he was like, is it closed yet? And I was like, is it open yet? And I'm like, no, it's not. He's like, my coworker just walked in here with conch water. I was like, and so I went on Twitter and I was like, whoever is eating conch water at Terrence's workplace, I'm calling the police on you. And do you know that the guy actually, he responded, he actually saw it on Twitter.
Really?
He was my friend who was like, about how he was actually feeling really bad. Because some people, they still don't know, and they're supposed to feel bad. Exactly. So the next time you have conch during the post, you'll be like, oh, nah, I really shouldn't be doing this. And you know that you feel bad because, I mean, the conchs, the fish, they're just trying to survive. And all of us are trying to, like the Bible says, be fruitful and multiply. You're all trying to get your stuff in the next generation. And so it's just for all of us to take a minute before we do, because everything we do, of course, has a reaction. Just making sure that whatever we do, that we take a moment before we do it and make sure that we, minimize whatever hurtful impact we can have. And I mean, that should be environmentally, but also in your general life.
Yeah, just practice a little restraint.
Yeah, a little restraint. I feel like Ian was Van Zandt, like a motivational speaker with that line just now.
Very much so.
But yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
I'm glad to have been here.